I still remember the last normal morning with my wife. Meredith kissed me at the door, smiled softly, and said, "I love you," just like she had for 5 years. We had just paid off our mortgage. We were talking about having kids. Life felt complete. But there was something different in her eyes those last few weeks, something I failed to notice until it was too late. 2 weeks after that morning, Meredith sat me down and said something that shattered everything I believed about our marriage. Before we dive into this story, let me know where you are watching from today. Drop a comment below, hit that like button, and make sure you subscribe if you have not already. And what she said next would change everything I thought I knew about love and loyalty. Let me take you back to where it all began. I met Meredith at a small coffee shop in Columbus, Ohio, about 7 years ago. She was standing in line ahead of me, holding a latte that was way too full. When she turned around, she bumped right into me and spilled half of it down the front of my shirt. I remember she turned bright red and started apologizing over and over. But I could not help laughing. There was something about her, this nervous energy mixed with genuine sweetness, that made me forget about my ruined shirt completely. We ended up sitting together for 3 hours that day. By the time we left, I knew I wanted to see her again. We got married 2 years later in a small ceremony with just our families. My parents helped us with the down payment for a house in a quiet neighborhood outside the city. It was nothing fancy, just a modest 3-bedroom place with a backyard and a front porch where we would sit on summer evenings. Those first few years were everything I had ever dreamed of. We painted the walls together, planted tomatoes in the backyard, and spent countless nights cooking dinner side by side while music played from her phone. I worked as a civil engineer, often traveling to construction sites during the week, but I always made it home by Friday evening. Meredith worked in marketing at a local company, and her schedule was more predictable than mine. We made it work. We were happy. Then, about 6 months before everything fell apart, Meredith got promoted to marketing manager. It was a big deal, and I was genuinely proud of her. Her new boss was a man named Derek Holloway, the regional director of the company. I only met him once at a company holiday party. He was tall, well-dressed, probably in his mid-40s, with gray at his temples and a smile that seemed a little too polished. He shook my hand firmly and told me what a talented wife I had. I thanked him and thought nothing more of it. But things started changing after that promotion. Meredith began coming home later and later. At first, it was once or twice a week. She would say there was a team-building event or a client dinner she could not miss. I understood. New position, new responsibilities. I wanted to be supportive. Then the late nights became more frequent, 3 times a week, 4 times. Sometimes she would not get home until 11 or midnight. I noticed other changes too. She started buying new clothes, things that were more expensive and more fitted than what she usually wore. She got a gym membership and started going every morning before work. She changed her hair, got highlights, started wearing more makeup. I told myself these were positive changes. My wife was feeling more confident. That was a good thing, right? But the distance between us grew. She seemed distracted when we talked, always glancing at her phone. She would smile at text messages and then put the phone face down when I asked who it was. Just work stuff, she would say. You would not understand. That phrase began to sting. You would not understand. As if I was somehow not smart enough to comprehend her world anymore. I tried to talk to her about it a few times. I asked if everything was okay, if she was feeling overwhelmed at work. She brushed me off every time. "I am fine, Zane. Stop worrying so much." So I stopped asking. I told myself I was being paranoid. My wife loved me. She told me so every day. Then came that Thursday evening. I finished work early and came home around 5, expecting to surprise her with dinner. But when I walked through the door, I found Meredith sitting alone at the kitchen table. No food, no cooking, just a glass of red wine in front of her. The lights were dim. Something in her posture made my stomach drop. "Sit down," she said. "We need to talk." I sat across from her, my heart already beating too fast. She took a long sip of wine, then set the glass down carefully. What she said next felt like a punch to the chest. She started talking about emotional needs and personal growth. She said she felt like she had been losing herself in our marriage, like she needed space to discover who she really was. I listened, confused, not sure where this was going. Then she said the words that changed everything. "I want an open marriage," she said. "Monogamy is outdated. I have been doing a lot of reading, and I think we would both be happier if we allowed ourselves to explore connections with other people." I could not speak. I just stared at her, trying to process what I was hearing. She continued, her voice steady, almost rehearsed. "This is not cheating if we both agree to it. I am not asking for your permission, Zane. I am informing you. This is what I need." I finally found my voice. "Is there someone else? Is that what this is about?" She shook her head, but her eyes flickered away from mine for just a second. "No, this is about me. This is about self-discovery." I told her I did not agree. I told her that was not the marriage I signed up for. I said I loved her and only her, and I expected the same in return. Her face hardened. "You are so controlling," she snapped. "This is exactly why I need space. You never let me breathe." We argued for an hour. By the end, she stormed off to the bedroom and slammed the door. I slept on the couch that night, staring at the ceiling, wondering what had happened to the woman I married. 2 days later, I came home from work to find half her closet empty. On the kitchen table was a single sheet of paper with her handwriting. "I need time to figure out who I am. Do not contact me. This is not cheating, because I told you." I called her phone. It went straight to voicemail. I sent texts that were never read. In desperation, I called her office. The receptionist told me Meredith had taken an extended personal leave. When I asked about Derek Holloway, there was a pause before she said he was also out of the office on business travel duration, unknown. That was when the truth hit me. My wife had not left to find herself. She had left to be with him. The first week after Meredith disappeared was the darkest of my life. I could not eat. I could not sleep. I called in sick to work and spent my days lying on the couch, replaying every conversation, every sign I had missed. The house felt enormous and empty. Every room reminded me of her. I called Marcus, my best friend from college. He drove 3 hours to sit with me that first weekend. Marcus is a lawyer, sharp and practical, the kind of guy who always knows what to do in a crisis. He listened to everything, then put his hand on my shoulder and said something I was not ready to hear. "You need to start protecting yourself, Zane. Gather evidence. Document everything. I know you do not want to think about divorce right now, but you need to be prepared." I shook my head. I still thought she might come back. I still hoped this was some kind of midlife crisis, some temporary insanity that would pass. Marcus did not push, but I could see the concern in his eyes. My sister Brooke came to visit a few days later. She took one look at me and started crying. I had not shaved in a week. I had lost weight. The house was a mess. She spent the whole day cleaning and cooking, forcing me to eat something other than the stale crackers I had been surviving on. Before she left, she hugged me tight and whispered, "You are stronger than this, Zane. Do not let her destroy you." I did not feel strong. I felt broken. The neighbors started finding out. In a small neighborhood like ours, nothing stays secret for long. Mr. Patterson, the retired schoolteacher who lived across the street with his wife, had seen Meredith loading suitcases into a car that was not mine. He mentioned it to his wife, who mentioned it to her book club, and within days the whole street knew something was wrong. Carl, my neighbor to the left, knocked on my door one evening. He was a plumber in his 50s, divorced himself with rough hands and a kind face. He did not ask questions. He just handed me a six-pack and said, "Figured you might need some company." We sat on my back porch and drank in silence for a while. Then Carl told me something that made my blood run cold. He said he had seen a silver BMW parked in my driveway several times over the past few months, always during the day when I was at work. A tall man with gray hair would come to the door, and Meredith would let him in. They would be inside for hours. I knew it was Derek before Carl even finished describing him. Nina, my neighbor to the right, came by a few days later with a pot of homemade chicken soup. She was a nurse, a single mother with a young daughter, and she had the calm, steady presence of someone who had seen a lot of pain in her life. She told me her ex-husband had cheated on her too, that she understood what I was going through better than most. I appreciated her kindness more than I could express. By the second week, I forced myself to start looking at the practical side of things. Marcus helped me check our joint bank account. What I found made me sick. Meredith had withdrawn $12,000 from our savings, nearly everything we had. The money was gone transferred to an account I did not have access to. Then I checked our joint credit card. The charges painted a clear picture. Luxury hotels in Miami, 5-star restaurants, spa treatments, shopping sprees at designer stores. My wife was living her best life on the money we had saved, together the money I had worked overtime to earn. I discovered something else, too. Meredith had left her email logged in on our home computer. I know I probably should not have looked, but I could not help myself. What I found were hundreds of messages between her and Derek going back 4 months. Long before she had announced she wanted an open marriage, she had already been having an affair. The emails were explicit. Derek promised her the world. He said he would leave his ex-wife for her, that they would travel together, build a new life. He called her his soulmate. She called him her future. Reading those words felt like being stabbed over and over again. By the 4th week, something shifted inside me. The constant pain began to harden into something else. I realized that sitting on the couch waiting for my cheating wife to come home was not going to fix anything. Meredith had made her choice. Now I needed to make mine. I went back to work. I threw myself into my projects, staying late, taking on extra responsibilities. My boss noticed the change and praised my dedication. He did not know I was using work to keep myself from falling apart. In the evenings, I started fixing up the house. All those projects Meredith and I had talked about doing together but never got around to, I began tackling them alone. I repainted the living room. I fixed the leaky faucet in the bathroom. I built new shelves in the garage. Carl came over to help sometimes, and we would work in companionable silence, 2 men who understood that sometimes you just need to keep your hands busy. Nina started dropping by more often, too. At first, it was just to bring food or check on me. Then we started having actual conversations sitting on the porch as the sun went down. She told me about her daughter, about her struggles as a single parent, about the ex-husband who had left her for his secretary. I found myself looking forward to those talks. By week 5, I barely recognized the person I was becoming. I had lost 15 pounds, but it was because I was going to the gym every morning, not because I had stopped eating. I stood straighter. I spoke with more confidence. The neighbors commented on how healthy I looked, how different. Marcus helped me prepare the divorce papers. We documented everything: the affair, the abandoned home, the stolen money. Under Ohio law, Meredith had committed adultery and abandonment, both of which would work heavily in my favor during proceedings. The house was legally mine. My parents had given us the down payment as a gift specifically to me, and we had made sure the deed reflected that. Meredith had no claim to it. I changed the locks. I closed our joint accounts. I canceled the credit cards she had been using to fund her vacation romance. Whatever fantasy she was living in Miami was about to come crashing down. And then, at the end of week 6, it did. Marcus called me on a Friday morning with news. Derek Holloway had been fired. The company had conducted an internal investigation after a complaint from Derek's second ex-wife, who apparently still had contacts in the organization. They found evidence of inappropriate relationships with multiple employees over the years, including Meredith. Derek was not just a cheater. He was a serial predator who used his position to manipulate women who worked for him. But that was not all. Derek had been hiding serious financial problems. He owed thousands in back child support from his previous marriages. His bank accounts were being garnished. The credit cards he had been using to wine and dine my wife were maxed out and now declined. The luxury lifestyle he had promised Meredith was built on lies and debt. I felt nothing when Marcus told me. No satisfaction, no vindication, just a tired kind of acceptance. Meredith had thrown away our marriage for a con man. She had believed his promises because she wanted to believe them, and now she would have to face the consequences. The next day was Saturday. The weather was beautiful, one of those perfect late spring afternoons where the whole neighborhood comes alive. I was outside painting the front fence, a project I had been putting off for weeks. Carl was helping me working on the section closer to the street. Nina sat on my porch with a glass of lemonade, taking a break from chasing her daughter around the yard. Across the street, Mr. and Mrs. Patterson were tending to their garden. A few other neighbors were out walking dogs or washing cars. It was the kind of peaceful community scene that made me remember why I had wanted to live here in the first place. Then a yellow taxi pulled up to the curb in front of my house. I watched as the back door opened and a woman stepped out. It took me a moment to recognize her. Meredith looked nothing like the polished, confident wife who had left 6 weeks earlier. Her hair was tangled and unwashed. Her clothes were wrinkled like she had been wearing them for days. Her eyes were red and swollen from crying. She had no luggage, just a small handbag clutched to her chest. The taxi drove away, and Meredith stood on the sidewalk, staring at the house. At me? Every person on that street stopped what they were doing to watch. Then she started running toward me, her arms outstretched, tears streaming down her face. "Zane," she screamed. "Baby, I am home. I did not move. I did not drop my paintbrush. I just stood there looking at this woman who had once been my whole world and felt absolutely nothing." She stopped a few feet away, confusion flickering across her face. Why was I not rushing to embrace her? Why was I not crying with relief? "Zane," she said again, her voice cracking. "Please?" It was a mistake. Derek was a con artist. He used me. He lied about everything. I had nowhere else to go. I still did not speak. I just watched her waiting. Her confusion turned to desperation. "Say something," she begged. "Do you not love me anymore?" I finally set down my paintbrush and looked her in the eyes. "You told me it was not cheating," I said. "You told me you needed to find yourself. Did you find what you were looking for?" Meredith crumpled. She sank to her knees right there in my front yard and started sobbing uncontrollably. She babbled about Derek, about how he had lied about his money, his job, his intentions. She said she was the victim. She said she had been manipulated. From across the street, Mrs. Patterson called out in a voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "Honey, you packed your own bags." Meredith looked around, then really looked and saw all the neighbors watching. Mr. Patterson with his garden shears, Carl with paint on his hands, Nina on my porch, half a dozen others scattered along the street, every single one of them staring at her. She turned back to me, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Can we please go inside and talk?" I shook my head. "No. You made your choice very publicly when you announced our marriage was open and then disappeared. I think it is only fair that the conclusion is public, too." Meredith's face contorted with anger. "This is our home," she hissed. "You cannot keep me out." I reached into my pocket and pulled out an envelope. "Actually, I can. These are the divorce papers. I have filed on grounds of abandonment and adultery. And the house is in my name only. My parents gave us the down payment as a gift to me. Remember, you signed the papers yourself." She stared at the envelope like it was a snake about to bite her. "You cannot do this to me," she said, her voice rising again. "After everything we have been through." I took a step closer and spoke calmly, without anger, without hatred. "You did this to yourself, Meredith. You made your choice. Now you have to live with it." She stood there shaking, looking around for support, and finding none. Carl moved to stand beside me, a silent show of solidarity. Nina rose from her chair on the porch. Mr. Patterson shook his head slowly. Meredith tried one last time. "Zane, please. I have nowhere to go." I met her eyes. "That is not my problem anymore. You have family. Call them." She stood frozen for a long moment. Then slowly she turned and walked back toward the street. The taxi was gone, but she pulled out her phone with trembling hands. I did not watch her make the call. I just picked up my paintbrush and went back to work on the fence. 20 minutes later, another car arrived. Meredith got in without looking back. The car disappeared around the corner, and just like that, she was gone from my life. Carl clapped me on the shoulder. "You okay, man?" I took a deep breath of the spring air and nodded. "I will be." The first night after Meredith left for good, I sat alone in my living room and cried. Not because I wanted her back, not because I missed the woman who had betrayed me. I cried for the man I used to be, the one who had believed so completely in a love that was never real. I cried for 5 years of memories that were now tainted, for a future that would never exist. I let myself grieve fully and completely, and then I wiped my eyes and started moving forward. The divorce was finalized 3 months later. Meredith did not contest anything. She had no legal ground to stand on, and I think she knew it. Marcus handled everything, making sure I kept the house and what little remained of our savings. I heard through mutual acquaintances that Meredith had moved back to Pennsylvania to live with her parents. She was looking for a new job, starting over from scratch. I did not feel happy about her misfortune. I did not feel sad either. I just felt free. In the months that followed, I rebuilt my life piece by piece. I got promoted at work to project manager, a position I had been working toward for years. The extra responsibility kept me focused and gave me a sense of purpose. The house, which had once felt like a monument to my failed marriage, became something new. I finished all the renovation projects, every single one. By the time I was done, it barely looked like the same place Meredith and I had shared. Carl became one of my closest friends. We went fishing together on weekends, sat on each other's porches, drinking beer, talked about life and loss and everything in between. He had been through his own divorce years earlier, and his wisdom helped me more than he probably knew. And then there was Nina. Our friendship deepened slowly, naturally, without pressure or expectation. She had her own healing to do, her own scars from a faithless husband. We understood each other in a way that did not require explanation. After several months, we started having dinner together. Then we started going to movies. Then one evening, sitting on my porch as the fireflies danced in the yard, she reached over and took my hand. Neither of us said anything. We did not need to. I will not pretend the transition was easy. There were nights I woke up angry, mornings I felt the old pain creeping back. But I learned something important through all of it. The people who hurt us do not get to define who we are. Meredith's betrayal said everything about her and nothing about me. I had loved honestly and completely. That she chose to throw it away was her failure, not mine. One evening, about 8 months after the divorce, I was sitting on my porch watching Nina's daughter play in the yard. Nina was beside me, her hand warm in mine. The Pattersons waved from across the street. Carl was firing up his grill next door, promising us burgers later. I realized something in that moment. This was happiness, not the desperate, needy happiness I had chased with Meredith, always worried about whether I was enough for her. This was something quieter and more real. Contentment, peace, a life built on honesty and mutual respect. Some people come into your life to teach you what love is not. And when they leave, they make room for people who will show you what love can be. I do not know what the future holds. Maybe Nina and I will build something lasting. Maybe we will remain friends. Either way, I know I will be okay. I know I am enough exactly as I am. For the first time in a long time, I am excited to find out what comes next. If you have ever had someone try to redefine the rules of your relationship without your consent, I would love to hear your story. Drop a comment below and let me know how you handled it. If this story touched you in any way, please give it a like. It helps more than you know. And if you are new here, make sure you subscribe so you do not miss the next one. Share this with someone who might need to hear it today. Thank you for spending this time with me. Whatever you are going through right now, remember that you deserve loyalty, honesty, and respect. Never settle for less. Take care of yourself, and I will see you in the next one.